Back or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. We're looking at what has been the first setback for Turkey's president since he came to power in 2002, garnering the most votes in Sunday's legislative elections by far, but not enough to be able to change the constitution short of that 50% threshold. With us to talk about it from Ankara, Muhittin Ataman, deputy director of the think tank SETA. We're joined as well by Emre Demir, editor of the French language edition of the daily newspaper Zaman, Tuje Okle, representative for the Paris branch of the opposition HDP party, and from London, Mehmet Ogucu, former Turkish diplomat, energy consultant, and analyst. Recep Tayyip Erdogan putting out a statement on his website 16 hours after the result. Here's what he had to say. In this new process, it is of great importance that all the political forces show responsible behavior and the necessary sensitivity to preserve the atmosphere of stability and confidence in our country and our democratic achievements. Muhittin Ataman, can you interpret it for us? What does he mean? What is he saying? Is he inciting his AK party to form a coalition?
Before answering that question, I want to mention two significant points related to the previous discussion. The first one is there was some questions and discussions about the confidence of the elections, confidence in elections, or the security of the ballot box and voter list. We have seen that this is a real success for Turkish democracy, and all sides who were claiming that there is no confidence in the election results, and I think they should at least keep this away. And just another related point, they were also claiming that there is an increasing authoritarianism. And you and me, we all of us, we know that in any authoritarian regime, it's impossible for three different political parties to get more than 10% of votes in an authoritarian system. So these election results show us Turkish democracy is a well-developed and consolidated democracy. And just for the records, I had to emphasize this. When we come to your question, I think Recep Tayyip Erdogan is calling for all political parties to behave responsibly. When we look at the first explanations of the three opposition parties, unfortunately, in their message, they clearly explaining that they will not be part of any coalition. So when we look at the history, the political history of Turkey, we may see, unfortunately, a deadlock in forming a coalition government.
Therefore, but as we heard all our panelists say, there's a bit of political grandstanding in that. There may be coalitions in the end. What's the message you think, Muhittin, for the AK party?
I think it's very difficult. You know, the AK party has a new political leadership. This was the first test for Mr. Davutoğlu. Probably when they say behave responsibly, that means you need to discuss any possible options. That means Turkey should not remain without a government. That is, he advised in one sense to form a coalition. But when we look at the messages of the opposition party, it doesn't make any sense to expect the forming a coalition in 45 days.
Mehmet Ogucu, do you agree with that interpretation of that statement put out on the president's website?
Well, it's interesting that President didn't want to speak to the public. He instead issued a carefully worded statement. And if he's going to follow this wording in terms of responsible behavior and also calling all other parties to behave that way, I think this is a big progress. It's a great progress. And as I said in my opening remarks, I think it has to start from the president and AKP to be more responsible, to be more forthcoming, so that a working coalition could be formed at the end of this process, hopefully before 45 days deadline. Also, I would like to support the view of the previous speaker in terms of the election being clean in large respect, in a very large measure, I think. This was a success of Turkish democracy as well. It was a clean election process. There were some favoritism and also some unfair practices, but overall, I think we can give a clean sheet to how election was held. I think one critical issue that we will be facing is not only how the government will be established, formed with the coalition partners. Within AKP, I expect that there will be some divisions to emerge, because even Erdogan and Davutoğlu couldn't meet each other after the election. They will be meeting probably tomorrow. Within the AKP, we have new generational leadership coming up. Davutoğlu, this was his first election campaign, and the old-timers are leaving. What will be the role of the former president, Abdullah Gül? Everybody says that he has ambitions to come back to the scene. And what about the new leadership within AKP, which will be challenging Erdogan and Davutoğlu, perhaps? So there will be lots of jockeying within AKP, then with President Erdogan, then with the coalition partners. And I don't think that this is going to lead to crisis. It creates some uncertainty, but I believe that this is a very, very healthy transition from a period in which AKP was a dominant power for more than 12 years. And now we are transiting to a more representative, more healthy, more balanced political system in which it will be quite difficult to take drastic executive decisions as Erdogan did. He was very successful in this regard. I think we should give credit to President Erdogan for achievements he had, especially until 2010 and 11. Nobody challenged that actually seriously. But since then, things got a bit messy, if I might say so. Therefore, there is a need for thinking within AKP what kind of party it would like to be. And perhaps this might be an opportunity also for Prime Minister Davutoğlu to leave from the dominance of Erdogan, because he wasn't seen as a real prime minister in the sense that he could exercise his power. He was overshadowed all the time by President Tayyip Erdogan. Therefore, this might be an opportune time to rethink, reconsider the power figurations within AKP and how it can work out a workable coalition with its partners. If it's not going to work, we hope that it will not take long time to go to an early election. I don't think it's going to be a solution either. AKP might lose more in an early election. HDP, for which many Turks voted, their vote level in the previous election as independents were around 6.5, I think, %. Now they got 13%, doubled. This is thanks to also votes borrowed from the mainstream Turks, because they wanted the Kurdish party to enter the parliament, to become a powerful voice, not only for Kurds, but the whole Turkey.
On several of those points. First of all, let's talk about Turkish democracy here, because we're seeing two faces of it over the past several years. We have seen, for instance, the number of journalists jailed, which, by the way, it's not just Erdogan. His predecessors also used to throw journalists into jail. We've seen this raucous fight with the judiciary. And yet, as both the previous speakers said, at the end of the day, a clean vote on election day.
Clean vote, it is actually, we worked for that to be clean. It was not that easy. It was not automatically came, first of all. And then authoritarianism is another issue, because there is still a 10% of threshold. And
10% of threshold to enter parliament as a bloc.
Yes. And that was, we were fighting against, and it was not easy.
You think it should be lowered?
Even doesn't exist. And also, as you mentioned, threats to media and to the press, and it exists existed before AKP government, yes, but AKP government came and said that they will let people for freedom of speech and freedom of expression, but it was on the contrary, they continued to attack journalists and also threaten them. And also for all this process, we should also mention the attacks against HDP, to rallies, to the offices, and to the candidates. And already there are 2 explosions in Diyarbakir, and we don't know still who did that. And obviously, it's
yeah. There was violence on the campaign trail. There was I know a campaign bus driver who was shot dead as well.
And also, yes. So there are 3 people killed and more than 200 people injured, and that's not really democratic, as Muhittin Ataman mentioned.
Emre Demir, I want to pick up on one point that was made by Mehmet Ogucu about how this could be an opportunity for the AK party to return to its roots. Remember, Turkey, seen as a model throughout the region, the standard of living in your country, it's tripled under Erdogan. Yes. What should the AK party stand for, I guess, is the question people are wondering.
Well, the same old AKP who came to power, I don't think that it's possible. But AKP has actually an opportunity, because we're talking about the coalition scenarios. Why it's not unlikely? Because of Erdogan's role. The opposition parties want to limit the role of Erdogan to his constitutional powers. And we don't know yet if Erdogan will accept that. He won't let it go to his powers. So we still have an Erdogan problem, but it's actually an opportunity for Ahmet Davutoğlu. And also, we have to mention that in September, there will be a congress within the AKP for AKP leadership. So with Abdullah Gül coming back, it's a possibility. We will see. Maybe it will be possible to form a coalition with Erdogan's normalized role.
All right, so there's talk that there could be soul searching within the AKP. Muhittin Ataman, I've seen reports that there could be the resignation of Prime Minister Davutoglu, that he could be the sacrificial lamb in all of this.
I don't expect the resignation of Davutoğlu since this was his first election and he's a newcomer as the leader of AK Party. There will be a deep discussion for sure. I mean, Turkish people still voted for them. I mean, for 40%. If we declare this 40% as a failure, what kind of results for any opposition movements for their leadership, even if they decrease their vote percentage? So they have already declared that it's a victory for the opposition party. You know, the 3 opposition parties came together and they succeeded to end the one-party government in Turkey. But this is not the end of the day for AK Party. They are still by 15% more than the main opposition party as the first party. If we claim that, yes, this is a failure, so how about the other 2 opposition parties? I mean, for me, the only victory is for HDP, since they entered these elections as a political party for the first time, and they doubled their votes. So this is really a great success for them. But I do not claim the same thing for the 2 opposition parties.
All right, let me just pick up on that point about the HDP. Just remind our viewers, it ran as a bloc with a leader insisting that he's more than just the representative of the Kurds. Let's take a listen.
Turks, Kurds, Arabs, Caucasians, Armenians, and Bosniaks, all of ethnic identities who live in this country. It is the joint victory of all beliefs. Alawites, Sunnis, Christians, Jews, Yazidis, all of the discriminated that want to live free with their beliefs.
Tuncay Oklay, you yourself, you're not a Kurd, and yet you're the representative for the party in Paris. Was it difficult to join the HDP?
No, it was not difficult at all, and because they accept people just who wants to really start the campaign, and we are not so much people at the end. But I want to also mention because when Demirtas was telling about the minorities, I should also mention the women.
A record number of women going into the new parliament.
Yes, and
not just from the HDP though.
32 from HDP, and the half of the candidates of HDP were women, and so it was the first time I believe in Turkish democracy. And then that was not the case for CHP, AKP, MHP. In total, the number of the candidates of these three parties were still couldn't catch the number of HDP's women candidate number, and still it is gonna be the first assembly parliament most in Republican history, no? Mm-hmm. With the
was it nearly 100 women in the new parliament? Mehmet Ogucu, your thoughts on that? The fact that there are new faces entering this parliament, and what this this ability of this new of the HDP to garner votes from outside its traditional base means for Turkey, and also for the relationship it has with minorities.
I think HDP is a very welcome political movement in Turkey, because we thought that excluding HDP from the parliament would push them outside the political system. Then the Kurdish movement in Kandil Mountain, in Europe, and they will be further radicalized. So the mainstream Turks gave almost 6 to 7% to HDP so that they could join the political process, and together also perhaps differentiating themselves from the Kandil Mountain, as well as İmralı, as we call it, and become an independent political force.
And will this result on that score, let me ask you, will this result make it easier or harder for authorities in Ankara to strike a definitive deal with the outlawed PKK?
I think it will be very, very easy relative to the past, because in the past, AKP was handling the negotiations with the Kurdish groups through the National Intelligence Service. Now it will come to parliament, and the HDP will be the main party, not only for Kurds, as its chairman said, it's also a party garnered a lot of votes from the Turks. So there is a heavy responsibility on the shoulders of the HDP leadership to become a party of Turkey, not only Kurds, but they will be a key instrument and powerful voice in implementing, designing the Kurdish settlement issue, which is a critical problem.
Muhittin,
I want to say one more thing about the threshold. I think 10% threshold was unfair. But if you think about it, why it was instituted, first of all, back in 1980 was because of the chaotic and volatile, fragile coalitions, fractured political system. So from that extreme, we moved to another extreme where the serious political forces cannot be represented in parliament. So the challenge is now, the mission has been accomplished, so this threshold should be brought down to a reasonable level, 5 to 7% perhaps, or 6%.
But let me bring in Muhittin Ataman on the previous point. Do you agree, Muhittin, that there is now a chance to, better than before, to have a lasting peace between those outlawed Kurdish guerrillas and authorities in Ankara?
Yes, this is my expectation also. But let me point out that HDP, yes, he got votes, and he have now members of parliament all around Turkey. I mean, he has 24. This is not the first time they are in the parliament, by the way. As the previous speaker said, this is not the case. They were already in the parliament, but this time they have 24 members of parliament from 9 Kurdish regions. They have 11 members of parliament only from Istanbul. So Istanbul seems to be the largest Kurdish city in Turkey. They are truly now representing the mainstream Turkish political atmosphere. This is for sure. Another point is AK Party itself, it contributed to this normalization process. You know, it created the peace process with the Kurds. I mean, the negotiations, direct or indirect negotiations with İmralı, with Kandil Mountains, and with HDP members of parliament. So the other side of the peace process was and is AK Party. But now I think HDP should take more responsibility. They have to take the initiative. Now the ball is in the hand of HDP members. They have to take more responsibility, and they need to call the Kandil Mountain at least to get rid of the weapons and to facilitate the peace process for the coming future.
All right, Emre Demir, a final word on this.
Well, I think the HDP will become a major leftist party in the parliament. They have a charismatic leader, good-looking, good-speaking leader, very outspoken on women's rights, minority rights. So it's a real chance for Turkey, for the peace process in Turkey. And one last point on Muhittin's remarks about the AKP. I agree with him on the AKP. We cannot consider a big failure for AKP these results, but it's a big failure for Erdogan's willing to change the regime. So it was a failure of Erdogan, but it was not a big failure for AKP, especially after 13 years of ruling in Turkey. So.
All right, an important nuance you say. I want to thank you, Emre Demir. I want to thank Muhittin Ataman for being with us from Ankara. I want to thank as well Mehmet Ogucu for being with us from London, as well as Tuje Oklay. Stay with us, though. Our Media Watch segment is next. When we last saw James Creedon last Thursday, it was in the middle of a rough and tumble Turkish election. Now we have the results.
Now we have the result, Francois, and indeed it has been judged by a lot of the world's media as a body blow for Turkey's ruling party. That's the headline in Foreign Policy, for example. But let's take a look at some of the other headlines in the world's press. Zeit Online, the German media, suddenly shrunk is how they're summing up Mr. Erdogan's current woes. The New York Times, in a tweet, is summing up elements of their analysis. Turkey's election results represent a significant victory to Kurds, liberals and secular Turks. The Brookings Institute puts it even more succinctly. They say that the Kurds have rescued Turkey's democracy, even if that is perhaps a simplification, seeing as we were saying, the HDP party is representative of other strains of society as well. The left-leaning Israeli daily, their headline is Sultan Erdogan's dreams turn to nightmare. So some of them are quite cinematic type headlines, I think, Francois, maybe being overly dramatic. At last, the Turkish awakening Erdogan could not crush. Now, this article or this analysis in The Guardian says that the spirit of Gezi Park inspired this election result that no one predicted. And indeed, I suppose one of the elements we were looking at last week as well is that those protests 2 years ago did give rise to a huge increase in election and monitoring, which may have contributed to the result that we saw today in terms of absolutely ensuring a free and fair election. Elsewhere, comparisons of the good looks and broad message of the leader of the HDP party with Obama. The Kurdish Obama, some are calling him here that's in The Guardian. Meanwhile, in France TV, the French state broadcaster's website, he's being likened, or the party is being likened to a Tsipras, or Kurdish Tsipras.
Is he more Tsipras or Obama, Tuje?
Right. I think politically speaking, that's probably more accurate. And then more Sultan comparisons in this cartoon on the Franco-German channel's website. That's a swollen head there, Sultan-like.
Let me bring this in. When Erdogan came to power, he didn't like those references to the old days of the Ottoman Empire, but it seemed to grow more and more in the last 13 years.
Yeah, of course. Starting with the 2010, he used this kind of language, this kind of political strategy, reminding the Ottoman power, reminding the Islamist, the return of the Islamist power, sort of Khalifa. This kind of language he started to use after 2011, especially after the Arab Spring.
And indeed, another comparison has been the autocracy that we're seeing under Vladimir Putin in Russia. And that is being referred to in one Syrian, the 47th Syrian Twitter account. Nice try, Erdogan. And you can see hashtag Prez for life. I don't think this is Vladimir Putin's official reaction. There are also contrasts being made with how Erdogan feted a huge municipal election victory in March of last year in what became known as the balcony speech in Ankara, where he addressed the adoring crowds. And Hurriyet Daily News, this is the English language version, they've been doing a countdown for how long he has been absent from the airwaves and from the public view.
Hasn't tweeted since June 6th.
Well, there you go. And so they did this countdown showing certainly that is not usual for his more omnipresent media style.
And when that first reaction comes in, you'll have it for us.
In whatever form it comes from.
James Green, many thanks. I want to thank our panel once again. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.